Hello there. If this continues, we will see the breakup of the UK, but not along nationalist lines. Oh no, it will split along religious lines that will ignore the UK's traditional internal borders. The Lib-Lab-Con Green Uni-Party system falls over itself to fill its ranks with those of a certain religious demographic, to the point it is now obscenely obvious. But woe betide those of a Christian bent. You are not wanted. In today's woke environment, where everyone and their views are meant to be equal, the establishment has added Christians to the list to be cancelled out of society. And the Liberal Democrats seem to have jumped onto that particular bandwagon. Liberal Democrats, what an affront to the Trades Descriptions Act. The Lib Dem Party members have reported their party to the Equality and Human Rights Commission over accusations that it has tolerated a hostile environment against Christians. And this case revolves around Anglican and former award-winning BBC journalist David Campanale. He was chosen by the party to run for the Sutton and Cheam seat, but a campaign has been running against him for 2 years to get him replaced as their candidate because of his Christian values, it seems. And there are 2 upcoming hustings in the constituency to choose who to replace him with. And we're told that even though Mr. Campanale filed evidence of discrimination, harassment and victimisation against him at all levels of the party, nothing was done about it. So I wonder how all those good Christians who voted Lib Dem at the local elections earlier this month are feeling right now. I also wonder how many other Christians will now come forward with similar stories. Now the sticking point appears to be that Campanale is a former member of a political party called the Christian People's Alliance. And the CPA has campaigned in the past against both abortion and gay marriage. And we can't have that in the Lib Dems, can we? The Lib Dems are a broad church of woke, which in reality makes it a bit of a niche operation that has an aversion to Christianity. So we have anti-Semitism in the Labour and Green parties, Islamophobia in the Tories, and Christianophobia in the Lib Dems. Although the entire establishment, even the Tories, does support one certain demographic, either out of choice or out of fear and abject cowardice. The upshot? The whole of UK politics is becoming ever more sectarian as time passes by. And the real truth is that the drive to replace Christianity with secularism has led directly to this. And the more we continue to change our nation's demographics, the worse it will get. The potential good news is that the 2-party state could be destroyed. The potentially very bad news is that it would destroy the nation-state along the way. The political and social makeup of these islands would be unrecognisable. And as I said at the beginning, that will not mean breaking the UK up into its constituent 4 sections of England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. No, it will split based on religious lines. Party political instigated religious lines, possibly based around our largest cities. New parties, or more probably one single party, attracting almost the entirety of the UK's fastest growing religious demographic. And in the end, the strongest religion will win. The one that is prepared to go as far as it takes to rule over the rest of us. And the wedges to start that split are already being hammered into place. If this continues, at some time in the near future, the UK will become centrally ungovernable. Police forces and local courts in certain areas will be meting out a justice far removed from the norm, out of fear of the consequences. Just look at London and its two-tier legal system right now. Do you think that will be getting any better anytime soon? Now, many armchair warriors out there would be tempted to say that someone will come along to save the day. Robinson or Farage, for example. The trouble is that neither of them can save the nation on their own, or even with a small team. They need the vast majority of the silent majority to cast their fears of being called names aside and speak out loud and clear. But has that point been reached yet? Probably not yet, I think, if ever. Brits are far too supine and browbeaten these days, especially the English. They get easily bullied by the thought that they might be labelled as far right, not realising that the modern-day definition of far right is ordinary too tolerant people who've been right so far. And don't think for a moment that the lib-lab-con green establishment uniparty has your best interests at heart. It assuredly does not. It has plans that involve diluting our nation's state and any heritage it now has left with a deluge of foreign heritage. Unless you are an ardent supporter of this drive to destructive wokeness or have just not been paying attention, you will know that it's been happening all around us, and it's happening right now and has been gathering pace for decades. The pace of change is now at express train levels, and the only solution our politicians ever have is open the borders wider to boost GDP. And look at how that's turned out so far. While Michael Gove in his speech about extremism made it quite clear to me that the far right is a bigger threat to establishment plans than Islamism is. And nothing will ever convince me that the Labour Party won't throw us all under the bus in pursuit of the vote of its preferred demographic, especially as it fights the likes of George Galloway for that voting base. What keeps a nation together is a feeling of national pride, having shared values among its people, all based upon a firm spiritual foundation. The UK does not have that today. Our new religious base is meant to be woke secularism based on pseudoscience, as and when it can be employed to push a certain narrative, whether it be a pandemic or the climate. But that left a vacuum into which religion is now seeping. But this time, instead of being one main religion traditional to these islands, we now have 2, 3 or more, all vying to fill that void, with one particular religion, with its roots and thoughts far away from here, intent on pushing all the others out. And for some reason or other, the hierarchy of our traditional Christian religion, that should be battling for spiritual preeminence, is urging Islam along. Now, the Telegraph says that in the letter to the Equalities Commission from the supporters of David Campanale, they said, "This evidence depicts a supposedly liberal organisation allowing clear religious discrimination and hostility to thrive within its ranks. It suggests that Mr. Campanale was driven out from his democratically elected position, not because of any objective failings or wrongdoing, but because a vocal group within the Sutton Borough Liberal Democrats refused to tolerate his Christian worldview." And they also went on to say, "Although Mr. Campanale has submitted evidence of religious discrimination, harassment and victimisation perpetrated against him to party authorities at all levels over a 2-year period, no appropriate action has been taken. We believe that only an external investigation by the EHRC can now secure justice." And according to them, there have been multiple alleged breaches of equality law and the Lib Dem constitution. Just like all the other mainstream parties, the Lib Dems seem to lack ethics when it comes to internal spats and investigations. Unless we clear those mainstream politicians out of Westminster, along with their woke civil service and dysfunctional police services and courts, there will be no country left to speak of.